How you doing, everybody? Matt from the Beer Massive Podcast, back with yet another episode. This week, we actually sit down with a longtime friend of mine, Brad. He's been on the old podcast, the old Beer Geeks Radio, the old podcast, but he's been on the distribution side of the industry for quite some time, working for various companies around northeastern Pennsylvania, before finally moving out to New York City proper and slinging beer all around the boroughs. And it's been a minute since Brad and I have sat down and chatted about beer. With the pandemic hitting New York especially hard and all those businesses having to close their doors for extended periods of time, and a shifting way beer lovers have consumed beer over the past, year plus during the pandemic, I thought it'd be interesting to get Brad's take on how the beer world functioned pre-pandemic in Manhattan and the boroughs proper, how they worked during the peak of the pandemic in that area, and how they've changed and what people are doing now as far as beer consumption and what they're doing and buying and what he sees the future holds for New York, which I believe to be almost a microcosm of what most of us here in the States will see in the future. New York typically leads the way on these kind of things, so I'm curious to see what he has to say. So sit back, relax, listen to me and an old friend chat with Brad Jones, Blue Point Brewing Company, New York City proper. How you doing, y'all? Matt, Beer Massive Podcast, back with another show, and this one I'm kind of looking forward to because hanging with friend. And this is the first podcast I'm doing in person, like with a human, since a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. Now with my boy Brad Jones. Brad Jones from Blue Point Brewing and all kinds of things beer. What's going on, homie?
Nothing. What's going on, man? It's good to be here. Yeah, it's been a while. Going back to, geez, when's the last time I've been on one with you?
Honestly,
2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Oh God, dude, it had to be quite some time. You know what it was? It was probably the last one I did in my and was it in my dining kitchen in Duryea? Were you there for that one?
No, I think the last time I was on something with you, it might have been elementary or Equilibrium when we were on the road trips.
There you go. Yeah. So pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And just to actually sit. I mean, full disclosure, we were chugging beers about 3 days ago. You know what I mean? So It's not like we haven't seen each other in a while. But prior to that, we haven't seen each other in a while in person. But we end up having my son's kind of sip and see, kind of meet and greet kind of thing for close friends and family. Brad came up. I was like, let's do a podcast. And we didn't get to it that day because of beer. And mead.
Lots of beers.
And meads. Yeah. And then we're like, okay, let's do it remotely. And then he's like, you know what, dude, I'm just coming through that way. Let's just pop in and do it back in person. So this is pretty fun. Thanks for stopping by, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
For those who don't know Brad, if you haven't been watching the channel or listening to the podcast, really, you were on the old radio show. It's been that long since you've been kind of doing this stuff. And we kind of met. We met previous to beer, but we kind of became friends through beer because you used to come into my previous line of work, which is the tattoo shop, and get tattooed by one of the tattoo artists there. And then we just bonded over, what was it, some toboggan?
Yeah, it was hot wings and chocolate porters.
Chocolate box.
Chocolate box.
There you go.
Chocolate box and hot wings at a local tavern.
Yeah, the town tavern.
Yeah.
And best wings in the universe. Not the best service, but the best wings in the universe. And then it went from there, and kind of catch people up on what your journey in beer has been like. Where have you started? Where have you been? And where you at now?
Okay, like I started with a local wholesaler in the Poconos of part of Eastern PA. Budweiser wholesaler. We covered 4 counties in around there, and I went from on-premise, off-premise. Kind of did the whole shebang there, like from grocery stores to bars. I was there for about 6 years, I think, 6 or 7. And then, was looking for something new, and my choices were Philadelphia or New York City, and I always was in love with New York. So, started applying for jobs. I ended up going to Flying Dog for a hot second in New York City, was working with them, and then the opportunity came up to go back kind of into the Budweiser family with Blue Point, and just took the opportunity. It was smaller territory, more focus on like a brand that I could really grow with. And so that's where I'm at now. Like I said, I've covered all 5 boroughs, Long Island, with Blue Point, I started Lower Manhattan. So a lot of the East Village, Lower East Side, and then I currently am covering the central part of Brooklyn.
Okay. And then you're talking about New York City proper. I mean, that's crazy. But from like a logistical standpoint, pre-COVID, like what was the beer market like for Blue Point? 'Cause you're talking about an AB InBev product. You know what I mean? You're talking about some, a brewery but also been part of New York staple for, God, how long has Blue Point been around?
1998, so 23 years now.
Yeah, so I mean, you have that kind of luxury of one, having a known brand, two, being entrenched in New York. But some people might say, okay, AB InBev. What was that fight like when you were doing like distribution for a brand that people might not consider craft?
You do catch a little bit of that you're part of a corporation and you're not the same brand, but I mean the same leadership is intact. Like Mark Burford, the owner and the starter, head brewer, everything. He's still brewer emeritus with us. He still sits in on decision making and stuff like that. But that the climate, like the feel, is still there. It's still Blue Point. I had a former employee of mine or colleague of mine. He said, we're still the same assholes with a crazy uncle that has money. And that's kind of the best way you could put it. We're still the same people. It's our sales team's 14 people in the New York metro area. And we're just out there every day doing what we're supposed to be doing. And, we're the brand itself. As much as people want to be like, oh, you're owned by somebody, it's still craft beer lovers in New York City or outside of New York City also, just who love the brand and are passionate about it. And it shows when we do events. We want people to feel like they know what the brand's about. Like, come out to the brewery, have a good time. It's came out Long Island, small fishing town, and on the wall in the brewery and on the shirts for like the production staff is one of the greatest sayings, I think. And it says, we brew it, we drink it, and if there's anything left, we sell it. And that's just kind of how the company goes. If you're at a Blue Point event, it's probably going to be a good time, and there's going to be a lot of Blue Point people there getting drunk right alongside you.
Well, do they still make that? What was the one I loved? That old barley wine. What was it?
Old Holland Bastard.
Yeah, they still make that?
Yep.
Oh, yep. I love that beer. I remember finding old gems of that laying around all dusty and stuff.
Yeah, and we've kind of upgraded a lot of stuff now. Like, so we were a 60 barrel system for production, which is huge, and for a craft brewery.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's more so we couldn't do cool things like one-off as fast as we wanted to, but now we actually have a innovation brewer and a 7 barrel system.
Okay, so like I don't even want to call it 7 barrels pilot system.
Yeah.
But it's more just a effing around system.
Yeah, because we have the brew pub, we have a lot of just, fans. You've been around for 23 years. You need to keep people happy and really come up with some new stuff, new ideas, test new beers, and our pub's the easiest way to do it. So we have the 7 barrel system. We have a great innovation brewer, Adrian, and he, to the point where now we're giving him ideas. And if he thinks it's a good idea and it has legs, he'll put it on the system. So, and then not only that, but he, tweaking classic recipes that we have, because there's always something, timing wise or ingredient wise. Now there's better hops out there. There's better, better things. So really excited to see what's going to happen. And then we have, I always screw up saying these, foiders.
Yeah.
Foiders. So we have foiders now. We actually we did a collaboration with Spaten.
Oh, damn.
Last Oktoberfest.
Are they owned by InBev? Spaten?
Yeah,
okay.
I think they're an InBev. Yeah, they're InBev.
Europe.
Yeah, Europe. And so we did a rye fest beer and then aged it. That was the first beer to go into the foiders. And it was really, really great. Came out nice. But, there's getting back into the roots, like pre-AB, Blue Point did a lot of barrel aging. They did a lot of different styles, like you were saying, like with Old Holland Bastard, and then they would just always screw around with barrel aging. when you're building a new brewery, sometimes things go by the wayside, and that had to be put on hold for a little bit to get everything up and running where it's at. But now we're at the point where we're starting to expand again.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was that? But what percentage of beer leaves the brewery? It has to be, or the tap room, I should say. Like, it has to be a good percentage. Goes into cans and kegs, right? You probably do a ton of kegs, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
At least pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, most of our businesses, we're in 24 states now, I think.
Yeah.
Basically the whole East Coast. They were at one point in all 48 lower, and then pulled back. It just wasn't,
Yeah.
wasn't really selling and making the money to ship it across like the country. But yeah, so like, I mean, most of our stuff is still outside of the pub, outside of like Long Island area. I mean, Long Island's still strong. The whole island is one of our best markets. The love has been there for 23 years. Surprisingly, Florida is like our next biggest market.
Is that because there's just a bunch of ex-islanders down there, I guess?
I think so, but also like a big craft beer area. And then you have places like Publix that are just monsters. You know, so you get in there, you get some buy one get one deals going, and it cranks out some beer. We actually created a beer that was specifically for Florida, and then it was so good we had to put it onto the market for everyone else. And it's called Imperial Sunshine. It's a 9.6% Belgian wheat that's just jammed with Florida oranges.
It sounds like scary beer. Like, you drink it, you're like, oh, this is tasty. And then like 4 later, you're like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Is that beer?
Yeah, it's sea legs beer. Like, you stand up, get to go use the restroom, and you sit back down real quick.
Whenever I hear that, I think of that scene in Dazed and Confused where a guy's sitting in the back of the truck. And he gets up and he just sits right back down. That's like the classic one of that. What was it? I mean, because when did you start at Blue Point?
I'm just over 2 years now.
Just over 2 years now. So you're like, a year before the pandemic is kind of like when you got in there.
Yeah.
Take us from where you started and what it was like and how things changed, how rapidly they changed. Not necessarily through the whole pandemic, but that first kind of wave going into like midsummer, fall of 2020. Okay.
Yeah. So I started February 19 or March of 19. Just really easy to sell beer. I mean, in New York City, not simple, but places were up and running and cranking through beer. So pretty easy to get it on the shelf, get it into the bars, and get it out there. Then I switched markets March. Here you go. I switched markets February of 20. So position comes open in Brooklyn. I live in Brooklyn. So they said, hey, why don't you take that position, fill in that role, and we'll fill your role in Manhattan back up. I said, yeah, okay. 2 weeks later, the pandemic hit. Yeah, literally. So March 16th, I think, was the pandemic, and
March 16th was the last day I worked at my current job and started working from home permanently.
And we were all optimistic. Everyone, it was in that, it's going to be 2 weeks thing. It's going to be 2 weeks. We'll be fine. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And how did that go? Like, I mean, like, what were you don't have to disclose like actual sales number, but like, it had to be just insane. It's not even a matter of sales. It's like nobody knew when it was going to end. So you're like, okay, you couldn't even project what you're going to do. Like, how much beer do you give me to sell? Can I sell beer? Where can I sell beer?
Yeah, and then you also have to look at the fact that most major breweries and most major wholesalers, you're on a forecast system. So on a forecast system, like, they're going 6 weeks out.
Yep.
Saying that that's what they want. Well, so March hits, and there's already six weeks worth of beer in the pipeline.
Yep.
That the wholesaler has to worry about, that everyone has to worry about, and that's kegs and things like that are just, essentially went dead.
Yeah.
So I said, so March 16th hits, I'm at an account. We got the news that, from the governor, that it was 8 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night that night was end of people going out to bars, and it has to be to-go business after that. And it was just, we had no clue what was going to go on. And I people way above me that have better ideas of logistics and everything like that, how to make those decisions of what goes into bottles and cans versus what goes into kegs. You know, the core stuff still was being kegged for us. You know, there was still Toasted Lager and like Optical Illusion and some other brands, but most of it went right over to cans and bottles, you know, because that's where the markets shift. So that first couple months of the pandemic, you know, we were just in grocery stores, convenience stores, everything, you know, drug stores, just anywhere we can go. But mainly, like, it was like just trying to make sure that your brand was on the shelf.
Yes.
Because pantry loading was so huge. You know, if somebody could only get out of the house one day a week, they went out and they bought 4 cases.
Yes.
You know, and it was all grocery store, or, you know, if your neighborhood had a home distributor, there's not many in New York. But yeah, so usually it was your big grocery stores were getting the business, or your local bodegas and things like that. Yeah, so I mean, it was really unknown. It probably took until about June, I would say, for us to kind of get into a groove, but you're getting into a groove and still don't know. Like, is it going to end tomorrow? Is it going to end 2 weeks from now? How long are we going to be into this?
What do you know what percentage of your beers were like taproom, can, bottle, and keg?
I don't know the percentage on that. I know basically we're a 75% to 80% on-premise brand pre-pandemic. You know, you cannot make up for keg loss. There's no way.
Yeah.
A friend of mine owns a bottle shop in New York and in Greenwich Village, and we've had conversations with him, and he probably put it the best way I think anyone could. He said, if you have a good day at work, you go out to celebrate. If you have a bad day at work, you go out to commiserate. And that's what draft beer in New York City is. You know, if someone got a promotion, let's go out happy hour. You know, having a shitty day, let me go out and just hammer beers.
Yes.
You know, so like that type of loss is insane. You can't make it up. You know, but now, like I said, a lot of companies is just 2020 was a wash. You know, your numbers don't matter.
I mean, not you, I mean, you as a company were lucky for a couple different reasons. One, you already had the infrastructure in place for canning and bottling. You didn't have to worry about, you know, pivoting and figuring that whole process out. But two, when, you know, people kind of, I guess, you know, snicker and jeer at Blue Point being sold to AB InBev, you do have that rich uncle that'll keep you afloat. You know what I mean? Like you have that luxury. Was there a lot of loss at the company during that period, or a lot of people? I mean, you were there. Did they survive pretty well as far as keeping people employed?
Yes. So we didn't furlough anyone, and I am lucky in that sense. Like I said, I'm active with communicating with other craft beer reps and other reps, not just in New York City, but like through Facebook and groups and things like that. I mean, 90% of the industry had to be furloughed.
Yeah.
I mean, easily 90% of the sales force.
Yeah.
You know, so like I said, it really was just, I lucked out in that fact, and it was weird for me. It was almost like survivor's guilt. Like, I wouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Even amongst other people, because you didn't know who was furloughed and who wasn't, and who was or who even got laid off or fired straight out. You know, because some of the smaller brands, it was just like there was no furloughing. It was, okay, see ya.
Yeah, see ya.
Yeah, you know, so it was a weird situation there. You know, you want to talk business with people that are familiar with what you do, but then it's also, am I talking to somebody that's actually still working, or am I talking to somebody that just lost their job and like has to move back home now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very similar situation for me. Not that I work in the beer industry, but like, I work for a company that they increased in our sales increased 80% during the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I have a lot of people stressing about work and jobs and stuff, and I'm like, I'm so busy, I don't know what to do. And it's like, does that sound like a dick to say that because like other people are struggling? Was there anything? What was it like though? Especially, you know, New York is like, you know, they were pretty much the epicenter of COVID for a long period of time. Not necessarily what it was like going through COVID. I'm sure personally that was probably your head was spinning the whole time. And we can definitely touch on that. But like, was it just keeping your head down? Like, what were you selling? Who are you selling to? Like from that March 16th to probably what right around the election is when that was the big kind of big swath of time that was crazy.
You know, you still had a couple bars and restaurants that were quick to adapt to go items, and you know, we tried to do our best to help out, and plus like you had some like a little bit of laxation or whatever, like releasing some of the laws where like you could do to go in a plastic cup with a lid. It's closed now. Yeah. That's a closed container. You know, so there was a lot of that. Like, if the bar was open, try to get, you know, help them out. If we had plastic cups that we can get for them, you know, also it just helps like getting your brand out there, and it supports your keg that's on and everything like that. But I mean, there's, I guess, like, you know, hard time breeds creativity. Yeah. Type of thing. There were some amazing bar owners and managers that I worked with that pivoted real fast and, you know, saw what was coming and how to get around it. I mean, it was difficult for a lot of them. They had way more regulations and laws and things that they had to do, and the city saying one thing and the state saying another, you know, and, you know, that kind of back and forth between like de Blasio and Cuomo and, you know, whatever. Well, ultimately what Cuomo says is law in the state. You know, even though the city might be like, oh, you can do this, but you can't. Yeah. You know, so they had a million hoops to jump through, but, you know, basically at that point, I'm 95% off premise at this point. I'm in grocery stores, you know, just trying to make sure my stuff is in displays and on the floor in the cooler. And then really, I mean, a lot of it was helping the wholesaler, you know, because like not only were we not knowing what was going on, they weren't knowing what was going on, and they're shorthanded, you know, because some people did get furloughed through them. And so there was packing out stores. You know, there was days of that's all I did. Just go and pack out an order. Yeah. You know, and my company was great and really did help us out. And, you know, safety was number one. They got us masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, like, you know, plus the fact that we were distilling and making our own through the AB system. You know, we were getting our hands on things that in my neighborhood you couldn't get your hands on. Yeah. You know, and so it was great to see that like safety was the number one. It didn't matter it didn't matter. It was get out early, get your work done, get home. Yeah. You know, and then when you were home, busy work, you know, some
networking, stuff call.
Yeah, run reports, meetings online, things like that. But yeah, basically, like I said, it went all off premise. But I would have to say, geez, we were one of 4 companies that I can think of that worked throughout the pandemic. Like when it comes to that, I think it was like Doc's Hard Cider, us, Bell's, and one other people. Like, you know, yeah, that was it. Yeah, in all of New York, that's all I that's whoever I ran into. That, you know, I mean, some people were work from home. Yeah, you know, like some,
but out there getting their feet in the pavement kind of stuff.
Yeah. It was said there was like 4 or 5 brewery reps, you know, type of thing, or breweries that were out there, and it was just crazy to see, you know. And really, my focus and my mentality was just, you got to understand that some people's livelihood is on the line with these bars and restaurants. Yeah. You know, so it was really just doing as much as I could to make sure that they had what they needed. You know, giving them masks, hand sanitizer, gloves, you know, things like that. If I had extra, and I asked them and they said, yeah, here you go. You know, because it was just, that was the biggest thing was safety. Is just making sure that everyone out there, you know, actually I think I still have it. Like, it's still like ingrained in me. I still have it around my neck at all times, type of thing. If I'm outside the house, it's still on, and if I have to pull it up, you know.
Talk about that. Talk about it from a personal standpoint. What was it like, man? Like, because you know, you're talking about ground zero stuff, and had to be a trip traveling through New York, working when it was probably what? How active was the city? Like, was there even people doing things? Like, what was it like?
I had a day. I don't know what I was doing. I was in Times Square and there was 2 people, and it was 2:00 on a Wednesday, or something like that. I mean, that's that, if anything can encapsulate what the hell, I was in Times Square with 2 people besides myself in the midweek during busy rush hour.
Like I Am Legend stuff.
Yeah. No, it was bad. It was real bad. My neighborhood at one point was 70% infected. I think 71%. My zip code is 96,000 people. Right. You saw people getting carried out in body bags daily, out like on the route going between stores, and you're just seeing EMTs pulling bodies out. So it was bad, and it was it hit us just so hard and so fast, and it was in the city way before anyone said it was.
Yeah.
Now I think there's a report out there that says like November of 2019 was the first case in New York City, but I mean, come February, even before like people were really talking about it, in the industry you just heard, oh, so and so was out, really bad flu. So and so was out, really bad flu. And it was all bartenders and waitresses and salesmen. Yeah. Because you're in a major city and you're frontline.
Major city in the world.
Yeah, and you're frontline and you're frontline with tourists.
Yeah.
And Asian business is big in New York City, like banks and everything. Yeah. So like I said, I mean, and not even that. Like you had people coming in from all over through Europe. Like I don't even know. I can't even tell you when they restricted travel. It wasn't. In February it was still open travel. Yeah. In between countries. Yeah. So like I said, it was just. But you had those things, and did I get sick or did I not get sick? Don't know. I got sick in February, but I didn't have anything too bad. It was like a 3-day flu. Yeah. But I hardly ever get sick. And then like someone else got sick on my team, and whatever, and we were lucky, but I mean, there's a lot that weren't. Yeah. Just I'll stick to people that survived that I know, like him. Yep. Our good friend Tom. Yep. 21 days, 104 fever, on reducing medicines. Didn't know where he was. I mean, just as his friend, to not even be able to go over to like do anything because you don't want to go near him. Like it was tough. Another person in kind of the beer group that we have at Carmine Street Beers and the share that we do and stuff like that, is another friend of ours. He was like 22 days in ICU. Like it was just tough. It was tough, like to even see it or hear it. No, or
I mean,
I blocked a lot of it out.
Yeah, I mean, I got lucky. I had it in November of last year, and so did my wife when she was pregnant, and we were just terrified. But we had nothing. We had I tested positive. She didn't, but she got tested. She got tested before I was symptomatic, and she got tested when I got tested, and she wasn't sick yet. So then she got sick. So we're just assuming she had it because we both lost sense of smell. I had it. Worst thing I had was sniffles. So I was one of the infinitely lucky ones, but I ended up most likely being passed to me through my workplace, and the one owner of the company, he was in the hospital, on a ventilator. Yeah. So it's like one of those things where it's like it's because people come out of it doesn't mean it's whatever, but. Yeah, I mean, it had to be insane. Like, just logistically thinking about like walking around New York City and not people being around, it's got to be the most surreal experience. Was there a time, if it's actually happened yet, did you get to the point where like you've turned a corner or something flipped where you feel like things are on a better track? Like you're like things are mending, things are coming. Like, was there a specific point, or the one day you just looked around and went, "Holy shit"?
I think, like, honestly, start of vaccination with us, like, in New York City. We started getting it earlier and getting it out, and New York City is very efficient. I got mine done at the Javits Center. That was a weird experience. Yeah. Places that you usually went for thousands of people being there, and there wasn't. And then there's like some weird futuristic, like post-apocalyptic person speaking over a loudspeaker in 6 different languages about like stay 6 feet apart, have your mask on, and then there's armed army and like National Guardsmen there. Mm-hmm. Kind of weird. But no, like that was probably the beginning of that. So like I would say February, March a year later, this year, was kind of the beginning. You started seeing things open up more, and now, I mean, there was a lot more restrictions, and you still had all that stuff with the bars and restaurants, but end of March, beginning of April, like, the weather was good enough that people can be sitting outside again, and being around, like, and that was when things started picking up. Now, Memorial Day was like
the switch.
Yeah, that's like the big switch. It was, people were just, you could just tell people were tired, sick of it. Even if it wasn't going to be like full open, people were like, I'm still going to do something. I'm still going to go out. I'm still going to have fun. I'm still going to go.
It feels a year away, and it's only like a month ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, the last 2 months for me have felt like 2 weeks of how busy we've been. But also March feels like it was a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing. It really is. Like I said, it's last 2 months have been hectic, real hectic. Like, bars are opening at a big pace. Like, but it's not just opening. Like, most of them have been reopened, but some didn't. Like, you have some people that own buildings and didn't really have to reopen, and maybe have a smaller staff, and they didn't do that. Like, they didn't have to be open, but now they're starting to open again.
Well, let's talk about that from from the Blue Point side of things, from the beer distribution side of things. Like, when you get into January, February till now, like, how has things changed as far as like percentage of business, and not hard numbers, but business to distribution to what's going cans? How are kegs moving now, and like those kind of things?
I think we're almost really back to almost normal with how our distribution was. Where kegs, like the split between our production. Right now, I said there's so many things reopening, and we're considering 23 states, not just the metro area. So so our kegs are back up and running. We're doing full brands again. Like, everything's running. We have a rotational series that comes out, like, switches back and forth between a hoppy, like, hazy type Illusion series and then the Imperial series, and we're getting those out in kegs now. That was can only, kind of, with a few kegs in the beginning, but now you're getting more distribution on those kegs and things like that. So, like I said, we are getting back to normal, and it's good to see. It's good to be, but there's still that hesitancy, especially on the wholesaler side. They have, because I'm only focusing on my brand.
Yes.
You go to the wholesaler, they have 100 different breweries. They have to focus on way more than we have to focus on. So they're still a little hesitant. They would rather run out of stuff than to overload on stuff, which is understandable.
But it used to be the other way around. I'd be like, we'll take it, because then we'll sell it, and if not, then you take it back or something. You know what I mean? Like, now they're just like, we don't want to buy too much just in case.
Oh, yeah. I can't even imagine the numbers of what they, like, dropped.
Yeah.
And what they had to damage. And, and I said, there's some breweries that buy back. There's some that have no buyback system. There's some that split 50-50 and co-op it, and things along those lines. So, each brewery is different. But, like, if you have a smaller brewery, they're not going to be able to buy back their product.
Yeah.
Or help you out with it most times. So that might be a complete loss. Or sell it, like, fire sale it. But where you're putting kegs when there's no kegs to be... because I said, even places that I know that were like 20 tap systems, maybe we're only running 4 throughout the pandemic, and maybe now they're up to 10. So like I said, not everyone's running full system yet. Not everyone's doing that, but it's slowly getting there. And I think what you're seeing more now too is like the bigger venues, event spaces. I think that's what kind of like the barometer. So, like, Royal Palms Shuffleboard Club is, like, back up and running. They're not fully 100% open to the public. Like, I think when they're due Saturday, Sunday, it's more like you have to rent the lane.
Mm-hmm.
But as of yesterday, the mask mandates, we hit 70%. So we hit, like, the herd immunity yesterday. And so they dropped the social distancing and, like, the contact tracing and the temperature checks and things like that. So I think coming up in this week, and then definitely going into July 4th, I think by July 4th you're going to see like all the big venues, all the big event spaces, like being back to normal.
I bought concert tickets today.
That's crazy. Like, I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, for fall, but it's like, very optimistic. But the fact that I can even buy a concert ticket for fall was optimistic.
Oh, there was a show, like, who was it? It was a hardcore show in Tompkins Square. There was like 2,500 people.
Oh, jeez. No, I know. I'm not going till like the end of September.
No, this was April or something like that. It was like I said. So New York's getting back to there, and I know people that work at like places like the Knitting Factory and like Warsaw or Vitus, St. Vitus, and they're starting to book again. So I mean, and that's, I think Broadway just kind of started up again, like some small soft openings for some of the theaters and things like that. So like I said, it's really coming back. Come July 4th, that's going to be, you'll be able to see where it's at and what the city's looking like. But we're optimistic. It's coming back. But the only problem is, I mean, people that are way smarter and do, studies on these things, I think right now, anywhere between like 5,000 and 6,000 bars and restaurants in New York City are done. Like that's an actual number.
Yeah.
They're estimating another 5.
Because you have to also take into effect like people that just left. You know what I mean? Like, I know a ton of people just moved out of the city, whether it be because of a pandemic, whether they have no job, whatever. So, I mean, I know somebody that moved back to New York because the rent was so cheap.
Yeah, I think half of the Upper West Side is in Miami.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But no, I mean, you did see a lot of that. There was some really good deals, quote unquote deals, on apartments.
Yeah.
Because rents are going down because people left the city, but also, I mean, there's rent moratoriums in place right now, and it's like when that stuff gets lifted, what's going to happen? That's like the bars and restaurants. I think the one Thrillist or one of those people did like a survey in December. It was like, I think it was December or January, and it was something like 94% of bars and restaurants surveyed or whatever didn't pay rent in December, like just couldn't afford to.
Yeah.
Even though there's like, it's not like they had like, oh, you don't have to pay us. It was like, no, we can't pay you, and it was like, just see what happens, what the landlord says.
Yeah.
So they said, but it is getting better. It's starting to turn a corner. I think, like I said, come fall will be the real test too, because right now we're still, you're still in the summer. We're starting the summer. Well, a lot of New York in the summer, they go out to the Hamptons, they go to the Poconos, they go to the Jersey Shore. So you're not really seeing that full force weekend.
When schools come back in and all the families have to come back and people are back in the city and stuff like that.
I think September will be like the real, like Labor Day, September. You'll really get a sense for what's going on. But I mean, I have the access to data for years and years and years back, and my last 2 months in my territory for bars, you're almost compared to 2019 numbers when it comes to how much is going out and stuff like that. So like I said, it's. Yeah, that's the initial buy. What's actually getting bought through or sold through might be a different thing, but if they're buying, at least they're projecting that people are going to be in their bar.
How do you see New York City in the boroughs? Like, is it going to be different? Like, there's a lot of stuff that changed, whether it be takeout or, door-to-door ordering, stuff like that. Is that shit going to get the kibosh, or do you see a lot of that sticking around? How is beer going to change and how it's bought and drank and sold?
I think the internet and like the apps and things like that aren't going to go away. So you're still going to have your services like Drizzly and those guys that deliver. I think that's going to be a big part of just beer and wine and anything going forward. Especially if you're in a larger metro area. The ease of that any restaurant or bar or whatever that wants to sign up can sign up for the service, and then there's somebody that delivers or that has to be like delivering their stuff. But I can sit in my apartment and have the option of 10 different places to buy beer from, probably. Or the other one too is like the grocery store services, like the Instacarts. They do the shopping for you.
Yeah.
You know, and all the beers are on there. You know, whatever's in the beer section. So you can just sit from home and get your whole order from Wegmans and get your beer delivered. You know, or if it's not delivered, it's curbside pickup.
Yeah.
You know, you get ready and just walk in. It's already paid for. Grab it and go. You know, I think that this is something that the bars that have done well with it can run with it and add it as an extra part of your business. But it's a double-edged sword. These companies are taking insane amounts of percentages off of you. You know, so you know, like either you're gonna have to raise it for what you sell through those systems, but like if you raise it too much, you raise it too much, then why is someone gonna order it? Unless you really just don't want to leave your apartment and you want something delivered. You know, but I think there has to be a fine line there. Like these apps and companies need to realize that like you're taking too much of a chunk.
Yeah.
Off of a business that's barely getting by.
Talk about what did you do beer wise during the pandemic? Like what was your beer consumption, beer buying, beer? Did you drink with friends during the pandemic? Did you go to bottle shares? Did you change the way that you consume beer at all personally?
I don't think we really had a bottle share or anything like that. Maybe once towards like beginning of this year, we maybe had 6 or 7 people together in one spot. You know, I did meet up small, like at apartments with 2 or 3 friends. And, you know, we were still buying here and there, especially, I mean, it made it a little bit easier, you know, because you can get stuff, a lot of these now hyped cans and hyped, like, pastry stouts and stuff like
shelfies,
that. Or they're deliverable, like, you know, or they're like an online event, you know, so Equilibrium's doing, you know, Ticketbrite or Eventbrite or whatever, and it can get shipped to you in New York City, like state, you know, so people, like, there was definitely more of that. My friends definitely are starting to whore out Tavor, like, or whatever, and just like buying a ton of stuff from them, you know, like, but yeah, like I said, for us, or for me personally, like my beer consumption, I'm more like social drinking. I don't drink as much when I'm just by myself in my house. My THC consumption went through the roof. Like I ate a ton of edibles throughout 2020. Shout out Nico Nugs, love her. But yeah, like I said, but I mean, you kind of know me. I've always stockpiled with stuff. I mean, I have 30 Scotch bottles in the apartment, bunch of stouts and things like that. So I mean, I would pick up beers here and there, but rarely was I just like sitting there. And if I did buy like an everyday like chugger, it would be just like pick up a 15-pack when I was out shopping, like, or out working. Yeah. Just grab toasted lager, bring it back to the house. Now it's crushable and easy to drink type of thing. But no, like for me, it wasn't that big of a thing. And like I said, I think, you know, the turning point, like around my birthday, like middle of March, that was the first time like we got the group together. We went actually like out. We went up to like Drownlands and that area.
Oh yeah, I remember like, you telling me about that. Yeah.
So that was like 10 of us. I think we rented a house, you know, whatever. But that was kind of like the first big one. And I think New Year's we had like 8 or 10 people. But yeah, like trying not to like not the old bottle shares that we used to do where half the bar's taken up with people that are at the bottle share, you know, and things like that. But you know, I think after a while you just got whatever your core circle of friends were, you were comfortable with. Yeah. So for me,
much like people who live with families and they're like, our family unit is our family unit. And, you know, when people don't live with a family and, you know, their friends are their family unit.
Yeah. And like I said, Tom already had it. So, so hanging out with him was easy. Like, you know, like, cause you weren't really worried about it then. Marquise, who's my team lead in Brooklyn and is also one of my best friends, you know, we were out in the field together every day or almost every day for months. Yeah. You know, so hanging out with him was not anything that like, I would shy away from. You know, it was just, you just had to be careful, like what you were doing and where you were at and how you handled yourself when you were out in public or in the stores. You know, for a while there, the transportation, like the subways were awesome because it was just like they were sanitizing them and they were wiping things down and whatever, and there was less people. But then, like, there was a choke point at one point where it was like, the city's not open yet, but everyone's kind of back to work, and then they're running fewer trains. So then there was times that, like,
too many people.
Yeah, you're talking like November or last year or whatever, and you're on a train and it's like packed. It's like, well, you can't social distance. Like, it doesn't matter. You're right on top of each other. But now things are getting back to normal. I think like the MTA and everything's like back to like full running schedule, and which I mean is weak at best. Like there was always delays and trains that are packed and things like that. But you're seeing that like the rush hour stuff is there now.
Yeah.
The 2-5 is where I live on.
A bit of normalcy.
Yeah, like if you're on the 8 a.m., 9 a.m., like 2-5, like it's gonna be busy. So that stuff's getting back like to normal. And I mean the height of the pandemic was great for me, like with work, because I could drive anywhere and there was like no traffic, and there was parking spots and things like that. So I mean, it had its.
They should almost give you guys like a gold license plate to where you could park wherever you want because you work through. You know what I mean? Be like, hey, I was here the whole time. I'm allowed to park here. No fines or something like that.
It's getting rough now, like just in general, because the bars and restaurants are allowed to have outdoor seating, even if they don't have space for outdoor seating. So what it does is it takes like the parking spots on the street, and you have to build a structure that's like the New York Department of Transportation has to approve and things like that, but it takes away parking spaces. Yeah. Which I mean, this is just me whining because I have to park multiple times a day. But that's like, it takes up spots, but if that's what we have to suffer through for businesses to be running, and actually for me to have bars to go to, then I'm fine with it.
I would imagine, and this is the case, and I kind of wanted to bring this up earlier, just didn't have a chance to kind of bring it up, is like probably how awesome, like, and I used the word awesome in a weird way here, but how awesome it probably had to be at a certain extent to watch New York work through this, because New York's kind of like that place where everybody's like, fuck you, but like if shit goes down, everybody's like, okay.
Yeah.
We're going to fucking make it fucking work, and we're going to do what we need to fucking do. And that's the thing now, like, you don't have parking space. I'm sure people like, hey, your cop's not going to fucking be like, move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
I said, it definitely is, but it's an experience like I'll never forget. Just the whole, like you said, like as much as New York got shit on, like people were, you saw people being like looking out for each other.
Yeah.
And being a little bit nicer. I mean, that's starting to change now. But we're going back to like just fuck you, get out of our city. But no, like I said, it was interesting in that way. Like there was a lot more of just like, hey, you stuck it out, like almost to the point now where it's like people that left, like the city's kind of like, well, don't come back. Like I said, it's like, and that mentality, you could hear people say it, like, oh, like, where were you?
Yeah.
And that's how I feel, too, is just, I mean, the city needed you the most. These restaurants and bars needed you the most. And you left.
Yeah, but you can't fault somebody if they had the ability to leave and get out of that mess. I mean, I understand living there and then living in that kind of in the environment and seeing that coworker or friend or neighbor that stuck it out. Yeah. But if someone is like, not for nothing, like if I lived in New York and I had another place in the Poconos, I'm fucking out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, I understand why you do it. I mean, there's health reasons why you did it and stuff like that, and the complete unknown of what this was, and I mean, no one's ever gonna know until they finally look back on it years from now of just what this did, and I'm gonna be someone's data point in a doctorate thesis on 2020. Or something like that's the crazy part. It's like
it's going to be called the Brad Jones Project, by the way. That's what it's actually going to be like. Brad Jones Project, Coronavirus 2019 to 2021.
That was actually a softball team that I ran. Let's call the Brad Jones Project.
There you go.
But no, but I said it really is just you live through history. Like it's a historical event that everyone that has lived through this in some way or another, like your life was affected by it. There's a lot of people that aren't like, and I said this to people, there's a lot of people that aren't going to come out of 2020 ever. Mentally, will never come out of this
No.
year. You know, and I'm thankful for what I had and what I could do and how I worked through it. Because if I was home every day, if I got furloughed and I was home, I probably would have ate a bullet or, you know, like, or thought about it. Like, I couldn't have done that. Like, sitting in an apartment 24 hours a day on end and not knowing if I'm going to get sick or not. Yeah, like I said, so as much as you were afraid some days to go out to work, it was at least you got to see someone else and talk to somebody else. You know, you just saw people, I mean, like, sanitizing everything. You know, and people, like I said, that like, mentally they're just not going to come out of this ever again. You know, and it's sad to see it.
Yeah.
You know, but like I said, at some point I'll decompress this and work over what happened. There was definitely some callousness on my end. Conversations I had with people that I cut them short or didn't want to talk to them, and you know, and I hope they understand it was what it was, and because it was for me to like survive. Yeah, like I did get really tunnel visioned for the first like 4 months, and it was just like my job was get out, come home, shower, and like relax. Yeah, you know, and I said like it took me. Yeah, it had to be like end of May, beginning of June was the first time like I even let my parents in on any type of knowledge of what was going on in the city. Yeah. You know, and my mom was worried and my dad was worried, and you know, finally my dad was like, cut the shit. He's like, what's up? Yeah. And I was just like, well, like what you see on TV probably make it 60 times, 70 times worse. You know, like I was like, it's, you know, but I said you get really tunnel vision with a lot of that stuff, and it was just go to work. And
it's amazing what you can become used to and what becomes normal. You know, I mean, like you said, some people just can't do it. You know what I mean? Like, when you're lucky enough to where, like you said, it was almost, not it's a blessing that you had to work and go out into the world, but you at least had a familiar routine and got to, if albeit from a distance, kind of interact with life outside of living inside a box. And I mean, dude, that's why I was like so like not excited. Excited is the wrong word. One of the reasons why I want to do this recording is just that perspective of just living, because you live in beer. You know, you love it. Yeah. You drink it. You work in it. That's where you exist. You're more than beer. You know, you're 80% beer, 20% whatever the fuck that fucking barbecue bacon shit you make. That's the other 20% of you, which I love so much, and I've been eating the shit out of it. But for those that don't know, Brad makes this like, what would you call it? Barbecue sauce? I don't even know what it is. It's an accompaniment to everything.
It's I just call it bacon, bourbon, caramelized onion barbecue sauce.
It's not barbecue sauce. It's when you can eat it straight with a spoon, it's not barbecue sauce.
Yes.
Brad brought me like
I've seen people drink it out of a cup.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. This weekend. Yeah. It's like he brought me a liter of it, and I'm hoarding it like the devil. Anyway. That's why I want to have you on, man. I mean, just kind of talk about that aspect, and like it had to be crazy, but it's awesome to see kind of a light at the end of the tunnel and stuff starting to get. Again, it's not over. No one should say it's over, but to actually have that light at the end of the tunnel and just be like hanging out and ripping some beers in person is goddamn fucking fantastic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just good to see. Friends that you haven't seen in a while. Like I said, there's still a bunch of my friends that in other states that I haven't seen in.
Yeah, you're headed up to PA right now.
Yeah, like a year and a half, 2 years for some of these people. But like even in the city and just seeing like the regulars coming back into a bar, you know, that you might not have seen like during the pandemic because maybe like they're 1 day out a week was different than your 1 day out or whatever it was, you know, because a lot of that's what people did. It was like if they went out for groceries for the week, then they hit their bar for like takeout beers and then like went to and bought like 2 15 packs and you wouldn't see them again.
I'm laughing and it's totally has anything to do with what you're saying, but I just realized that the last time that we really spoke was like, can you build me a computer like a week before everything quadrupled in price and you couldn't buy anything?
And then that's why I didn't build it, because it was just
leading up to like, what is it, right around Christmas 2019 Brad wanted to build a new computer. It's like, I'll absolutely help you with that. I'm like, we'll do it. Really, we'll hook you up, get a good deal on it. And it's like, everything's now $1 billion. Enjoy. Yeah. And I'm like, we stopped talking about it. We're like, yeah, this is not.
Oh yeah, you gave me the price points. See if you can find this for this price, and I was just like, it's nowhere close to that price.
Yeah.
Like I don't even. And then the new gen processors came out or whatever, like the graphic cards.
Yeah, you can't even buy them still.
And you're like sold out like a day later. You're like, yeah, you're not getting that unless you're spending like $15,000. You're not getting one. I'm like, oh, okay, I want a $15,000.
I put these fancy stories of cheap awesomeness in your head. I kind of regretted building a new gaming computer until I actually bought it, and then like less than a year later, now everything is like quadruple price. I'm like, I kind of had good timing on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Plug. How do people find you? What do they follow you? Do you still do the Instagrams and all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah, it's Brooklyn Beer Bear.
Okay.
On Instagram. That's all I really do. Haven't really used Untapped in years.
Me neither, brother.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just a mirror up to my face on my alcoholism. Just like, but yeah, just usually Instagram. I said Brooklyn Beer Bear. Or if you see me in the streets of New York, Jonesy, working for Blue Point.
There you go.
I'm going to plug a couple people because
do it too. Man, they deserve it.
Shane.
Carmine Street Beers.
Carmine Street Beers. If you're in New York City, you gotta do yourself a favor. You gotta get to the fucking place.
I concur.
It's a family that runs a great
business.
What is
it, a block and a half away from Tiger?
Yeah, they're like 2-3 blocks apart.
Yeah.
So right by the Blind Tiger, it's on 52A Carmine Street. But like, I want to plug out also the Blue Point family and all my coworkers and shit like that. Like, I mean, we got through it together. It was tough. It was shitty at times. Times that you wanted to kill each other. But here we are. Looking forward to maybe a Cast Fest coming soon.
I know.
That'd be amazing. I think we had live music at the brew pub for the first time in a while.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so like I said, starting to get there. Union Beer, those guys are awesome. The guys I work with, like, they work their ass off through this thing, and they support my brand better than I can ever do. Like, I think my territory is 2,300 accounts. There's no way I see that, but the guys that I work with and the girls that I work with, they really get out there and they push our brand and everything like that, and not just our brand, but like hundreds of other brands. And that's what's awesome about like a wholesaler that really gets behind product and really pushes it and knows what they're doing. Because I've been with wholesalers, or I have friends that have been with wholesalers where your product goes to die, and they don't support your brand. So to be lucky enough to be working with some of these people that are just out there doing the same thing I'm doing, and even better than what I'm doing. There's some just kick-ass females out there, some kick-ass guys that are just doing the work and making sure that New York City has beer. And hopefully, like I said, this conversation a year from now is going to be completely different about how the city's fully back.
Yeah.
And like concerts are back. And
to look back on it and be like, I lived through that shit. Like, I didn't even think about it because, I got a son now, and it's just like to be like, old enough and be like, you lived through that? Like, that was crazy, and it's like not something to be proud of, but, it's just, for it to be as dim as it was at a certain extent, and to be able to sit here across the table from you and drink a beer and just, it's just awesome. You know what I mean? Just to kind of get back towards some semblance of normalcy and whatever, whether it be, just friendship wise or beer friendship wise, in any spectrum is fucking awesome.
Yeah. As I said, I'm very happy to be here, and it's just been great to see you. Like, Saturday was awesome.
Yeah, we had a blast.
Yeah, and can't wait for more of that. Can't wait for more just like hanging out and just bullshitting and seeing the people that I haven't seen in a while. And
I can't wait to come to New York, dude.
Yeah.
It's been so long, man. I can't wait to get back there. I mean, like last time, what did we do? What was that? We did the bottle share at Carmine, then we went the other half, then we went to Folksbier.
Yeah.
And then we drank in a Subway.
You interviewed Torch and Crown.
Torch and Crown, who they've actually killed it through the fucking pandemic.
Yeah, they've been doing well.
Because they had the worst timing in the history of time. They were like, hey, we're going to open. Not happening. You know what I mean? And it seems like they've really powered through it, and I can't wait to get back there and chug a couple beers and just Get shitty in Brooklyn, man.
So that's one thing like I want to touch on, and I have a couple accounts that fall into this category. There was ones that were younger, less than a year before the pandemic, and they did some of the best jobs of pivoting and like really getting their business to where it is now, where like they're coming out stronger than what they were. But like I think it was like they weren't tied to 20 years of tradition or like fan base that would be like, oh, well, why did you change this or why did you change that? It was like they were newer and they could just get out there and be like, this is working, let's go after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, there's a few out there, and I think like Torch and Crown might be one of them too. Like that just it helped.
Yeah. Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, if you talk to their accountant and their financial, and they'd be like, no, it didn't help. But to survive and build through that, and then come out strong on the other end of things, you're almost bulletproof. Not bulletproof, but as close as you can be in the beer and restaurant business to being bulletproof. Hey, let's open the first real brewery in Brooklyn or Manhattan, sorry, and then not do anything for a whole year. Just take a year off for you know what I mean? Like they had to hit the ground running with sales. They had to wait pretty much a whole year to sell a goddamn beer out of that place. Yeah,
so it's gonna take you a while to recoup financial loss.
Yeah,
but if you come out and you're still functioning and and your day to day is good from here on out,
you're a keystone in that area.
You're gonna build that relationship with the people that are around, and like you're gonna build that business. Like so, it might take you 2 years to recover financially to actually make that money up.
It'll pay way more.
Like I said, in the end, it's everyone that comes through this is gonna be stronger.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. Cheers, man.
Thank you for stopping by, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.